Before we start today's episode, got to give a huge shout out to our friend Dom at Big Four Transparency. Big Four Transparency is the first sponsor of the Accounting Conversations podcast, and they are changing the game for accounting professionals with their salary and compensation data. If you haven't visited the database before, we'll leave a link in the description. But you can essentially go in, add your salary and job data, and then view the thousands and thousands of other entries that have been put in and ensure that based on your city and the type of firm that you work at, that you're being compensated correctly. I've used the data not only to help some of my friends, but in my own life, and it is just going to be such a game changer moving forward in the profession.
Yeah, I think that I've definitely used it too. You can slice it any way you want. You can see if you have a certain certification, you can see what people with your same certification and years of experience are making. If you want to know what that next promotion looks like if you're at a firm that has quite a bit of data, you can go in there and see what the potential's like, what the hours are like. There's a lot there that can be helpful.
So make sure you go check out the link in our description to go visit Big Four Transparency today. Now on to the episode. We're making history here on Accounting Conversations. This is our premiere episode of my co-host Caden Cook joining me for Accounting Conversations. And not only that, I have one of my good friends and a very amazing mentor to me here today for today's conversation, and that is Marcus Steinfeld. He is an accountant at Dark Horse CPAs, and he's going to give us the inside scoop of what it's like working at one of the most advanced and forward-thinking firms here in the whole industry right now. So Marcus and Caden, thank you so much for joining me, and been looking forward to this one for a long time.
Just glad to be here, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
Same here.
This is going to be awesome. I'm pumped for this. Okay, so Marcus, we all started out our school at BYU Idaho. Do you want to give us a little background why you chose accounting, and then give us the little trip down memory lane of your accounting career?
Yeah, man. It's been kind of wild, honestly. I'll be honest, I sucked at high school. I had zero desire to pay attention in school. Never really did well. I was just bored, you know. And then junior year of high school, I took this accounting class with this teacher called Miss Andrew. And she was like an angel, probably the nicest person I've ever met up to that point. And I don't know, just something about it just clicked so easily for me. It was obviously the most basic accounting, learning debits and credits, but like I would zoom through the assignments so fast, and all my other classmates would always be like, "Hey, Marcus, can you help me with this?" So I would just kind of go around helping everyone, and I just loved it. I was like, "Wow, is this what it's like to like be smart at something?" You know, it was honestly the first class I like really deserved an A in and like really earned it. And then the next year, my senior year, it was just me and I think it was just me. I took the second advanced accounting class and it was only me, and I just loved it. Um, and I just decided that's really what I would try to focus on because I did a lot of research. I was like, you know what? Everyone will always need an accountant, like no matter what. Ever since like even before technology, there were accountants, right? And tax and all that stuff. And so after my mission, decided to go to BYU Idaho and study accounting. Um, had a kid, and that kind of put me behind on school because I was working 40 hours a week in Idaho Falls, so lived in Idaho Falls, so just trying to drive 30 minutes to work, school, everything. It was just time consuming. So I finished out later than I wanted to. But towards the end of my degree, I got a job at this amazing firm in Idaho Falls called Cooper Norman. Actually worked with Caden at Cooper Norman.
Let's
However,
go.
yeah, Caden's like one of my favorite people there. Yeah, he was a stud. I loved Caden. He was always fun to interact with. And but I was in payroll and I hated payroll with a burning passion, right? Like I thought it was the most like dull work I've ever done. And I went through a divorce, and after the divorce, I just needed a change, right? And so I decided to move to Nebraska, and I couldn't stay at Cooper Norman, moving to Nebraska. So I started at this firm. It was honestly one of the first places that offered me a job, and I thought it would be more tax heavy. It was about 90% audit and about 10% tax, and I just had a hard time like juggling both tax and audit. So a few months in, I met with this other firm, and I won't say their name just in case I say something negative. But I met with this firm about 10 minutes away, and it was a really small CPA firm. And I just told him I was like, I need a mentor in tax. I want to be 100% tax and just do that. And she gave me promises on how she'd basically mentor me, teach me tax, and it'd almost only be tax. And I started it there in the middle of tax season, finished the tax season, but like within like a week, I realized she had no interest in training me, no interest in mentoring me, and really no interest in just getting to know me as a person. And if you know me, I love interacting. I love the social aspect of work. I just wasn't getting any of that. And after about 3 or 4 months, I messaged Yuri on LinkedIn. I was like, "Hey man, like I don't know if you remember me, but we've talked once before, and I'm just stuck. I want to be at a firm where I'm happy, where I'm getting feedback, where I'm getting trained, and honestly, where I could just feel like I can grow and really learn." And he asked me my experience. I sent it to him, and he was like, "Just give me a couple days." And probably like a week later, he shot me a message. He was like, "Hey, have you heard of Dark Horse?" I was like, "Of course." Everyone in accounting knows about Dark Horse, right? They're like disrupting the industry. Like I've always kind of knew about them, and I was like, yeah, but like I was like, I applied when I was in college. There's a 0% chance I'm smart enough to work there. 0% chance. He's like, let me get you in contact with um, the owner at Dark Horse, which is Chase. And Chase was able to get me an interview with one of the principals, and him and I just clicked hard. Like I was like, I'm gonna work for this guy. He's awesome, but he wasn't in a space at that point to really train anyone and like give me the attention that I really wanted. And so at that point, I was like, you know what? I tried. It's not going to happen. So I was going to move on. But then, like, I just woke up one night. I was like, I need to try harder to get at Dark Horse. So I messaged Chase. I was like, hey, man, I know that it didn't work out with this principal, but I feel like my personality aligns with your guys. Is there anything, any possibility that I get an interview with someone else? And about a week later, I had two principals from Dark Horse reach out to me for interviews. One of them was Teddy, who I work for now. I talked with him and Clark, and we just hit it off. I just felt like I was talking to my two best friends, you know, like we were joking. I was making fun of their Kentucky accents. We were just having a good time, and I just felt really good about it. And long story short, I ended up at Dark Horse. I am 100% tax. I work remote. It's been a great experience. And I can answer any other questions you have about Dark Horse or my journey here, but that's kind of the watered down version of how I got here.
It's great,
I
man. I
love
feel
that
really
journey.
good for you about that. I
Thanks, man.
I feel like it feels good when you land somewhere where you feel like you can stay for a while. It sounds like you've kind of hit that point where you're finding something you enjoy.
For sure. It's been about a year now. Yeah, it's been about a year next month, so it's been awesome.
Well, and just on this call, we got two heavy hitters. So we got Caden, who's over at Summit, and we got Marcus at Dark Horse, which those are kind of the two big futuristic firms pushing the industry forward, right? I think there's some of the bigger ones that are packing a punch. So how cool is that? So maybe tell us a little bit about what makes Dark Horse different from like a regular firm, because maybe there's accounting professionals listening and they're just thinking, "Oh, well, isn't that just a normal CPA firm?" When really Dark Horse is like the opposite from a normal CPA firm.
Oh, absolutely. Um, but anyway, I would say the biggest thing about Dark Horse, you have to care about people to be able to work at Dark Horse, right? Whether it's your client or the people you work with. I remember my first meeting with Chase on it. He he was talking about how you need to be willing to contribute first and then partake later, which basically means like you have to be willing to collaborate with your peers. I remember my first business return at Dark Horse. It's probably my first actual business return ever. I struggled, as any new account does. You're gonna screw up on your first S corp. Instead of getting mad, I just remember Clark. He got on a call with me, and we just spent like 2 hours dissecting every part of their return. And then for like 2 months, he'd give me returns to work on, and he'd just jump on a video call, go through each line of the return. And that's how Dark Horse is. Like, if you ask a question, you're gonna have 5 people send you videos on exactly how to do what you want to do. And it's the same way with the client. When we do tax return, instead of just sending an email like, "Hey, this is your tax return, get over it," basically. Some the principals will get on a call or do a recording, go through every line on the return, be like, "This is why you owe this. This is what it looked like. These are the possibilities." So they're just very. They take the time to dissect every part of it if you're wanting to learn, which I think is this. You don't get at 95% of CPA firms, right?
Okay, so Marcus, what I would say is that you've been talking a lot about mentorship and how you've been able to kind of direct your accounting path and career based off of people helping you. And so how would you recommend to young accountants or students to be able to connect with people or connect with the right people? Like, what would you suggest to them? How should they reach out to people to get the kind of help that you've gotten on your journey?
Yeah, for sure. And it's a tough one because naturally, as accountants, we're introverts. We don't like to ever make the first move or inconvenience anyone, right? Um, one, I would recommend if you're on LinkedIn, when you connect with someone, whether you already have or you're going to send that first message. Be like, "Hey, I connected with you because you're an accounting professional. If you ever have time, I'd love to pick your brain either over chat or a 10-15 minute call." I've only had one person ever say no to talk about networking. So just take that first step. And then if you're already at a firm, ask questions. Find someone, whether they're a partner or staff or a senior, just reach out to them like, "Hey, can we get lunch?" I remember at Cooper Norman, there was this partner, Blake. Him and I would get lunch once a month. And he became one of my good friends and kind of encouraged me to fully step into tax. And so it's just about finding those people, making the first move. Because if you wait for someone to reach out to you, it might be 40 years before anyone ever asks you to connect. So just as an accountant, take that first step. And honestly, who cares if they don't get back to you? Like, just try someone else.
Yeah, and like from my experience too, it's like as long as you don't sound like that message generated by AI, like you'll be a lot more likely to get a response. But just don't sound like you're pitching. And then the other thing, like I've thought about a little bit, is you should try to network with people before you are in a dire situation. That way, you already have, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Because it's almost like if you are asking something of someone straight out of the gate, it's a little harder than if you can network with them and kind of pick their brain first, right?
I agree, and that's one thing Yuri mentioned too when I reached out to him. He was like, "Of course, I remember you. You commented on my post. You reached out just to say like you liked something." So I agree. You have to have that emotional connection before you ask someone for help. That goes back to contribute first, partake second, right?
I like that motto. I'm gonna start using that in my own personal life.
For sure.
Well, and it's so true for networking, like you just said, Marcus, because the students have this irrational idea of networking that you just get, right? Like you can just reach out to a random person and ask for a job right off the bat, right? But what it's really all about is developing relationships and friendships and growing and cultivating those over time, that's going to lead to long-term success. I mean, so it just comes full circle. What was it, 2 years ago? I think I had an informational interview with Caden. I had just like gotten done with a tutoring session at BYU Idaho and was in my car and did an informational interview with Caden while he was still at Cooper Norman. And now, 2 years later, it's like we still talk. Or Marcus, like we reached out. I can't remember if it was you or me. I think it was you. You reached out to me, and we've been talking on the phone a couple times a week for 6 months now.
Yeah.
And it's these types of relationships. Like neither of these situations were just coming and asking for a job. It was, hey, I want to build a friendship. I want to get to know this person and actually build something with them instead of just grabbing and taking all at once. And the fact that you commented and were active on Yuri's feed before you ever messaged him, that is, I mean, that increases your chance of getting a DM back by like 200% if you do that. But most students aren't commenting or being active on LinkedIn like that.
Absolutely. I can't tell you how many messages I get from people wanting to work at Dark Horse. Like I'll have people just literally send me a resume and be like, "Hey, can you send this to so and so?" And I'm like, "Dude, I don't even know you." And you ask me for a job, right? I agree 100%. And I think with you, Chayton, it was like I watched one of your podcasts and I was just blown away. I was like, this guy's in school. He has an accounting podcast and he's getting like these big shot accountants on there that are just established. And I just really admired that. And then that's how I found out that you knew Caden. And I think that's kind of what prompted me to reach out. Because, like, just to give Caden a shout out, I don't think there's a bigger go getter in the accounting industry than Caden. I think he was a junior, finishing his junior year when I met him, and now he's a CPA, CMA. He's doing fractional CFO work. Like he's just one of the biggest studs I've ever met in the accounting industry. And I remember he broke his arm. I think he was like mountain climbing or something. He broke his arm. He's in a freaking sling. He's at work, like trying to like get all his work done. I'm pretty sure he's still putting out more billables than half the firm. Like that dude is just a grinder.
You're too nice. But I actually forgot about that. That's really funny. I broke my right arm too, so I was
Yeah.
doing the whole keyboard mouse thing with just my left hand. It was awful.
I would give him so much crap. Like you'd just be like literally like and like trying to I was like if I broke my arm I'd be milking the heck out of that crap, you know?
Oh my gosh, Caden, we're gonna have to hear that story of how you broke your arm sometime. Then,
Yeah, yeah. Another time it'll have to be.
but wow, oh my goodness, yeah, you guys are both huge examples to me of what networking and getting to know the right people in the profession can really do. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how Dark Horse is structured differently from like a compensation and a structural standpoint? I mean, I know you guys don't have partners, right? You guys have principals, and
Yeah.
there's stock options available at Dark Horse. Like, what firm can offer stock options?
It's crazy, man. Yeah, you hit on the nail. So everyone at Dark Horse is a W-2 employee. Chase, the owner, is a W-2 employee. The interns, I guess we don't really have interns, but like this lower staff are W-2 employees from top to bottom. And obviously principals, corporate, you're able to earn stock options based on obviously what you contribute, what you do at Dark Horse, which to me blew my mind. I remember I was reading like the onboarding when I first started. I was like, wait, so like any employee can get stock at Dark Horse based on what they contribute or what they're willing to do, which to me is awesome. I think we have 25 principals right now at Dark Horse, which is just amazing.
And that's
Each
like the equivalent of a partner.
kind of yeah. So like each principal has their own book of business. So for example, my principal is Teddy. His clients are his clients. He owns that book of business. So if he were to leave Dark Horse, there would be a buyout arrangement for so Teddy could keep those clients and sell them to Dark Horse. So Teddy actually owns those clients, but he's under the umbrella of Dark Horse. So Dark Horse provides like all the back end stuff, all the administrative stuff, so he could just focus on growing his practice, right? And then obviously Teddy has his own employees, and then each principal is kind of structured the same way. Whereas at a traditional CPA firm, you'll have 20 partners, and you might have 10 partners working on the same client, right? One might be over one part of the tax return, one might be over the states, one might be over CAS, one might be over payroll. So yeah, the principal owns it from beginning to end, 100%. Which to me I think is pretty awesome. So they could choose what kind of clients they want, how many clients they want, what they want their book of business to be. Yeah, the career path there is very clear on where you're at, what you need to do to get to the next step, which to me is pretty awesome. And then obviously the earning potential is 100% dependent on what work you want to take on and how high you want to grow and go.
So Marcus, I've kind of seen a little bit, and seems like the accounting industry is kind of evolving from like fixed fee, from hourly billing to kind of fixed fee billing more. Do you think that accounting firms transfer more to this kind of like a kind of pay structure slash owner structure that Dark Horse has, or do you think it's going to continue to stay unique?
I think with more firms being bought out by private equity, a lot of firms are going to feel like Dark Horse model is more attractive, just based on you basically owning your work, you owning it. Like I don't think actually I should. I'm pretty confident Dark Horse will never be bought out by private equity. Right? I'm not the owner, so obviously I'm not speaking that as fact. But
let's pray that doesn't happen.
You can edit that out if you need to. But essentially, like the whole point of it is like I think when you have that autonomy and like you're still an owner without being a partner, you don't really see the need of having to have the partner status, right? Kind of like Shane was kind of telling a story how someone says you have to work, put in your dues, put in 100 hours of billable hours just to become a partner, right? Dark Horse kind of disrupts that. Dark Horse is like, hey, if you own your work, you know the material, why not jump in and get the work done as long as you have that knowledge and that experience, right? Who cares if you work 200 billable hours a week, you know?
Yeah, I love the
Yeah,
entrepreneurial spirit there that it pushes as well.
Absolutely.
That's cool.
I think we need more firms like Dark Horse if we're going to save the profession. So I get the opportunity to talk to a lot of accounting professionals now all the time, and the big talk this past week, well, for a while now, but big time this past week has been private equity and the negative effects it's having on the profession. And maybe you've seen it on LinkedIn too. It's been all over. Um, but I think we need more models like Dark Horse if we're going to save the profession from private equity, because let's be honest, private equity does not have a good track record when it comes to how they treat people, right? They're kind of ruthless. They come in, they'll cut everything, they'll get their paycheck, but the company they bought won't. And then, they escape having made a profit and the company will crumble. Well, and this might be a wrong opinion, but it seems like private equity taking over accounting thus far, at least in the top 30 firms, has been just partners trying to get a payout before they have to pay employees more money to be accountants. Because let's be honest, that's the real reason that the accounting profession has a pipeline issue, is because you go to 5 years of school, take 4 exams, which are the equivalent or just as hard as the bar, and you only make $65,000 a year out of the gate. Where you have lawyers and investment bankers and all these different other professional services that are making, upwards of $200,000 a year right out of school. Heck, for investment banking, you don't even have to have a master's degree or take any crazy exams. So yeah, I completely agree. We got to do Dark Horse is making a difference, and we got to do more for the younger employees. Yes, you need to put in your dues and you need to learn. But heck, like you were telling me the other day, you already have stock in Dark Horse. You already are an equity holder, which is where real wealth is derived, right?
Absolutely. And I was thinking more about, as you were talking, Caden's question about billings. I think one of the biggest problems, and I've seen it on LinkedIn with going over prices, like no one can really agree on like a baseline price, right? Let's just take for a 1040 example. So many firms will charge what, $150 to $300 for that 1040 return. So in order to make money, you need what, five, six, 1,000 1040 just to make it a somewhat okay salary. Why not take that same 1040, charge them $1,500, because then you get a higher quality client, and then you need 10 clients to have a decent salary versus 1,000 clients, right? And I think that's kind of what a lot of newer firms, Dark Horse for example, is doing. They have a higher, I shouldn't say higher, but they have a higher than average price if you compare it to like H&R Block or a mom and pop shop, right? But we have less clients where we're doing more personalized work, getting to know the clients better, getting to know their business better. So, because then you're not working 100 hours a week for $10 an hour, right? You're working 40 hours a week for a substantially higher per hour rate.
Yeah, Marcus, I'm all with you there. I think that's great. So how do you think that young professionals should position themselves to kind of take advantage of these modern thinking firms, or of the opportunities that are coming up with AI, or wherever you want to take that? What do you think we should do to position ourselves for success?
Be a sponge, right? One thing I've noticed about most successful accountants, they're aware of the competition. I was actually just writing a paper for finishing my master's, doing a SWOT analysis and kind of going over like who are the emerging smaller firms, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses. So I think just being aware of like what's working in accounting, what's not working, and just researching that. I do it by communicating with other accountants. I'm part of a tax group, so I see a lot of like what's working from them, what's not working, asking questions, and then just kind of knowing what your long term goal is. Right, my long term goal is tax, so naturally I'm going to want to learn from tax people while still learning about CFO work and bookkeeping and all that. But my main focus is tax. I'm going to surround myself with tax people. If you want to be a CFO, you naturally want to surround yourself with the CFO people on LinkedIn and learn from them, to ask about their firms, listen to their podcast, read their post. Bookkeeping, same exact thing. So just be a sponge to what you want to be an expert in while still learning about the whole industry as an entirety.
That's true, and I think now's a better time than ever to be a sponge, because I feel like all these podcasts are emerging, all these opportunities for, more things are online. And I feel like before, I mean, I have like a kind of a thing against webinars. Webinars are the worst. You can take the same person, put them in a podcast, and they're super interesting. You put them over in a webinar, and they throw up a slide up there, and they're just like monologuing the whole time, no interaction. Just, anyways. So I think that things have moved in a better direction where people are more real. You can you can make those groups, like you're saying, or you can get on a group with like 5 or 6 tax people, and keep up an active conversation of, oh, hey, this law just came out. That's crazy. Like, um, you know, what does that mean for your clients? Like, what are you doing to try to combat this? So I feel like we're in a good spot, and we probably just need to learn from the start to network like that, because once we're all higher up, we have our own firms, or we're higher up, we won't have those people above us to kind of to guide us, and we'll have to rely on our networks at some point for learning and bettering ourselves.
I agree 100%. I remember the other day I was doing this research for a client that has a huge liability. And I was just thinking to myself, I was like, I wish I could just ask an expert on how to lower their tax bill. And then I'm like, wait, this client thinks I'm the expert, right? And I think we're all kind of like leaning into that. We're like, eventually, and it's even happening now, we're having people reach out to us that are in college or just starting, asking these questions. And I feel so unprepared sometimes. But I try to lean on what someone else has told me to teach them. And 10 years from now, the accounting industry, how it is now, is not going to be the same in 10 years. I could guarantee that. So we're going to be learning for the next 20, 30, 40 years. And that's why I love accounting, especially public accounting. You're never going to be stagnant year after year. It's going to be an ever changing landscape. And those that aren't willing to change are going to be left behind. So we have to be willing to do that. And to kind of add on, we can't have that superiority complex, right? We can't feel like we're better than people that are doing things differently. I can't go in with the mindset like, you know what, Dark Horse is better than every other firm. We're perfect. Like that would just be dumb to have that mindset. I have to learn from other firms, even old traditional firms, is like something they do is working. What can I learn from them and add it? So my goal, honestly, this next year, and I kind of told Chayton, my goal is just to network more. I want to double my professional network to kind of take me to the next level of where I want to go in my accounting career, and just spend a year asking questions to people.
Yep. We got to get to some conferences together next year, Marcus.
We might get arrested, but I'm down.
I'm for sure going to Scaling New Heights next year, so we'll see. And I got Bridging the Gap. This episode will probably air after I've been to Bridging the Gap, but I'm going to Bridging the Gap this year, so that'll be cool. You're so right. I think what you just said is going to be like the sound bite, or like the epitome of the episode, is just the fact that you have to constantly be learning in this profession. And that's why I am so excited about what's coming in the profession, because it's just constantly changing and evolving and growing, and we get to be a part of that change, right? Like, some students might look at the pipeline issues and be like, "Oh, that's lame. I'm not going into the profession." Where I look at it as an opportunity of like, "Hey, how are we going to go transform this?" And it's people like you, Marcus, that are the ones changing the profession for the good. And we gotta convert Caden a little bit more to the tax side, if you know what I mean.
he, he's too
But
smart.
yeah, managing partner Caden Cook of Summit, and managing our CEO Marcus Steinfeld of Dark Horse someday.
No.
But speaking of change and being able to learn and grow from others, I think we need to have our little debate that we've been talking about for a couple of months now. So, for those of you who don't know, I'm all with the blue softwares. So I love TaxDome and I love Xero, and I will fight anyone about QuickBooks any day. So me and Marcus.
I'm already heated.
Oh my goodness. So me and Marcus have been debating for, well, we wanted to hold it all in for the episode. So we wanted to talk a little bit about, and granted, a lot of the listeners might not understand these softwares yet, so this will be a good learning experience. And Caden, it might be a little unfair numbers here since you're pro QuickBooks too, but
201.
I just want to preface this debate with, no one is truly pro QuickBooks as like,
Yeah, that's true.
It's more of a necessity, a convenience type of thing. So I just want to preface that no one here is pro Xero, no one here is pro QuickBooks. It's just a matter of convenience at this point.
hey, I'm kind of I'm pro Xero.
That's because you're young in your accounting career.
Hey, so let's look at some of the accounting influencers, how they came to fame and how their firms really got off the ground. Scotty Sacrano, Xero Pro Advisor, built his firm through the Xero network. Let's see who else. Oh, Blake Oliver. You know how he scaled his firm? Xero.
I mean, for
I
every Xero professional CPA, we could throw out 5 QBO1. So I don't think you want to open that rabbit hole, Jayden.
I think the bigger thing for me is just that Intuit is just a corporate monster, man. I don't know.
I'm
I
not.
feel like they're trying to take CPAs jobs.
I'm not going to publicly shame anyone, but what I will say though is QBO is great if you want to integrate softwares into your system, have an easy to use transition. We use another Intuit product for tax software. It all integrates. It integrates with the Ignition, which is our how we send out proposals. It integrates with like everything we use at Dark Horse. The biggest thing with software is you want what's best for the client and for your sanity, right?
Yep.
Even though QuickBooks has its pros and its many cons, including payroll, which I could have a whole podcast on their payroll, but it doesn't matter. Like,
Is their
despite
payroll bad?
it's it's not ideal. Um, but yeah,
Is there an ideal payroll platform right now though? ADP is terrible.
hey, I just want to say I have so many friends on my LinkedIn that work for ADP, Gusto, Paychex. I'm not gonna keep you. I'm not gonna swear. I don't want to lose any connections off this podcast. But what I will say, I think Gusto is wonderful. Um,
Gusto's doing some really cool things.
I think in terms of just small business success, Gusto is where it's at for small business.
Yeah.
Cooper Norman, we used an internal software called Evolution Payroll. By far the best payroll process I have ever used for clients. But I know it's expensive for firms to use. But yeah, I think it just depends on your client base. What do your clients prefer? What's going to sync to all your systems? I've never once heard of an accounting firm saying Xero syncs with everything, so I'm just going to leave it at that. And
I don't think it does sync with everything, but it syncs with a majority of the things that we use. And I, granted, I started on Xero, so I'm gonna be a little biased, right? I like Xero, but I think an important lesson here, and this is the follow up question I want to ask you is, we get this big picture view in school of accounting, right? You get a lot of audit, a little bit of tax in school, and you get this big picture of GAAP and all of these really important accounting principles that apply broadly or even in very distinct and important scenarios. But there's not a lot of talk about this technology and these different software platforms that are really transforming the profession. Do you think it's important that young professionals get experience with these different softwares? I mean, even if you're going to Big Four, like, do you recommend someone gets their QuickBooks certification?
absolutely. When I was doing my undergrad, I started like a little bookkeeping business. I still, yeah, just to get some clients, just kind of learn how to do it. I mean, a lot of these professionals, depending on if you go into tax, you're going to pretty quickly be reviewing clients' books when you're doing the tax returns, right? Doing a quick overview. How can you review books if you don't know what you're looking for in books? So I'm not an advanced bookkeeper. I'll never claim to be good at bookkeeping, but I know what books should look like. I know where how things should be coded, where what a balance sheet should look like, what a P&L should look like. But so I would 100% recommend either working part time as a bookkeeper, learning how to do the QBO certification though doesn't teach you how to bookkeep. It teaches you how to sell QuickBooks. I'll just say that right now.
Oh, okay.
I know Xero is kind of the same way, but a little bit more bookkeeping than selling. But you should at least learn the software and learn what a chart of accounts should look like. Like a loan, should a loan go on a balance sheet as a liability, or like some people may do, should it go on the P&L as an expense, which obviously it never should. So just knowing the basics of what goes where and why it goes there. And honestly, this can sound so basic, but learn what a debit is and a credit is. I can't tell you how many people I come across that don't understand debit and credits, and they're 3 years into their career. Like, just learn what a debit and credit is.
So you'd probably say the more important part is the learning the theory of it well, but probably through some practice of doing bookkeeping, but less about the software, more about the I know what the numbers should, where the numbers should go and what they should look like.
Absolutely. If you give me 3 hours with Xero, 3 hours with Sage, 3 hours with whatever software is out there, I'm going to learn it eventually, right? And anyone's going to learn the software. To just learn the theory. I mean, obviously, the more you know about a specific software, the better. But what if your first firm doesn't use that software? Then you just spent a year learning a software that you'll never touch again. So,
Yeah.
so I think it's going to get your feet wet, but the theory and the why is by far the most important to me.
Yeah, I'm kind of on board with that. I can get on board with that. I think the most important thing is that you learn what you're saying, the theory, and then you get into a software. Because once you learn one, I mean, there are differences and pros and cons, but essentially once you get into one and you kind of navigate around, your learning curve will just you'll be able to learn stuff so much faster. If you learn Xero and then you jump into QuickBooks, you might be like, oh, this doesn't have this or this, but you'll be able to get around at least and be able to do your job.
Exactly, 100%. 100%.
Well, and it's so, being a beginner bookkeeper right now and being an intern and learning all this stuff, it really is about going in and just doing it, right? Like, someone can sit there and show you exactly how to do everything, but it's a whole other thing when it's like, okay, I got to go find this and I want to figure out, like, the other thing that's hard with these softwares of figuring out is that you're not used to coming from school is you're syncing documents and receipts and invoices and all these different things from different softwares into your GL. And you got to like figure out, okay, that came in over here. Where did it end up? Where is it now? And doing that map inside your head and figuring that out, it takes time, but it really is just about getting in and kind of getting in the dirty, getting in the muck and trying to understand it.
100%. Like, yeah, for example, like let's say your client has a huge loan, and at the end of the year, the loan decreased by like 25%, but then you have no interest expense. You should know, like, hey, if there's a loan and they're paying on it, there 100% should be interest expense on the P&L, right? It's just learning like the why behind everything you're doing and the what behind it. Because anyone could put numbers in, but like, why are you putting those numbers into the software?
Yep.
Sure.
And it all goes back to, you start looking at the balance sheet and you're able to see this stuff right off the bat, right? Like, you see the loan, but the interest expense doesn't match what the difference is, and you start to be the little hamster in your head starts to spin around and you're seeing,
Yeah.
Okay, if this side looks this way, then there's got to be the corresponding entry on the other side, and I don't see it. So what's going on here?
Exactly. One thing that I learned at Dark Horse pretty quick when doing a business return is I always pull the ending balance from the tax return for each account, and I compare it to the beginning balances on the client's GL. And it used to take me hours to be able to reconcile each account like quickly on our work paper. Now I can do it pretty quick, and I almost always know why a certain account is up. It's like, you know what, based on the history of other clients, retained earnings is off because they didn't wipe out distributions end of the year. So distribution retained earnings is off probably by the amount of distribution. So you just start to learn like quickly how to find a problem. That for used to take me 4 hours, I can do in like 30 minutes now, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah. My major takeaway then from all this is just that what you said, Marcus, is be a sponge. And what was my new motto? Remind me.
Oh yeah, contribute first, partake second.
Contribute first, partake second. That's what I'm taking away from the
Pretty
jargon,
sure
from the
Dark Horse model.
software.
Yep, amazing lessons. Marcus, so happy that you could share one of our mentoring sessions here with all my listeners, and so happy to have Caden on board here for Accounting Conversations. Where can people find you? You said people hit you up all the time about Dark Horse. How many comments do they need to make on your posts and on your feed before they send you a message?
I'm not about that. I don't post enough to require. I used to post pretty religiously, but then I remember a few months ago I was talking to Teddy, kind of about my professional goals, and that's kind of what he told me. Just like he just told me to be a sponge because like I wanted to do all these amazing things when I first started, and I still do, but I didn't have the processes down. I didn't have as much knowledge as I needed to get there. So even though I would love to like have 1,000 clients in my name right now, but I know that it's a process to get to that point. So honestly, if you want to connect with me, just send me a message that isn't, "Hey, can Dark Horse hire me?" Just get to know me as a person, right? Like, ask you. I love when people ask questions about Dark Horse, like, "Hey, what is Dark Horse about?" Or "How did you like BYU Idaho?" Or "When are you going to take the CPA?" Just like normal human questions, right? No normal human is going to walk up to me on the street and be like, "You have a Dark Horse shirt. Can I work there?" Like, no one's going to do that in real life. So why do that in a message, right?
Yep, I love it. Well, thank you so much, Marcus, and looking forward to sharing this with all of our listeners. So thank you so much.
Hey, I'm excited, man. I know Dark Horse is excited to listen to it also. They asked for a copy as soon as you get it up. So
Let's go. All right, everyone. We'll see you next week.